Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Doctor to Doctor in the chat room. I am very excited today because I have someone very near and dear to me, Dr. Tanya Coleman, and we're going to have some discussions around divorce and life after divorce. She's going to tell you a little bit about who she is, and she's a wonderful person, I can tell you that. She's going to talk to us about her story, and hopefully, our takeaways today is going to be something that can be very helpful because we know that divorce is real. We know that it is a real fact of life, and many of us are in the category of divorcee. I am one of those persons, and honestly, I want people to understand the impact that divorce can have on lives of the people that are involved, all the people involved, including children, friends, mutual friends. It's just almost like a domino effect. And we're going to talk about that today. Before we get started, and before Tanya comes to us, Dr. Coleman, I'm sorry, before she comes to us and tells us a little bit about who she is, I just wanted to give out a couple of stats. I found these statistics from 2018. It says in 2018, 9% of 30-year olds had already ended their marriages. The proportion of people who were divorced, separated, or married multiple times maxed out at age 62, when about 41.6% of respondents fell into this category of divorce. Those are astronomical numbers, if you ask me. We know that marriage is a beautiful covenant between two people, and we don't want to shed any negative light on marriage, but we want to be real about all the things that come with it. So, hello, my beautiful friend, and tell us a little bit about who you are, and let's just kind of get this conversation going, okay?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me, on your show. And I have so much respect, for you. And we went through so much together, through the doctoral program. And definitely having you as that support was so helpful, along with others in the cohort. So let me just say that first of all. My name is Tanya. I go by just Tanya Renee on my YouTube channel, but born and raised right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Graduated from Glencliff High School, went off to college. This is something that I want to tell you, Dr. Shaw. One of the things I really want to do is be transparent in everything that I do. And I think once you come to a certain age in life, transparency is so important. When I graduated from college, I got married. So I have been married twice. So I got married at 22, and that's one of the things that I really feel like it's so important to talk about some of the choices that we make and, some of the mistakes along the way. Even as a Christian, we fall short so much. And I think once we go through things in life, it was important for me to kind of tell my story because you hope people don't make that same mistake. But not that I just wanted to throw that out there, but I got married at 22, very young. Had my oldest daughter will be 25 this year. So she is actually, the daughter of me and my first husband. Without going into detail about that, that marriage did end. And then, of course, I got married to my, second husband. And I'll talk a little bit about really why, and I think one of the reasons I really stayed in that marriage so long, other than other factors, was because this was my second marriage. And I did not, just thinking about all of the negative things that come with being divorced, here I was in my second marriage going through some things, but that second marriage, it was till death do us part. But anyway, I just wanted to at least say that. But my life has really taken a lot of different curves as we all go through life. You have your set major. My undergrad is in communications, so I started off being an on-air personality, in Memphis on 101. And then when I was in when I was in Nashville, I was at 92Q. Tanya Renee, I did the midday for a little bit, and then I worked a lot with Daryl J. Everyone knows Daryl J. So, the beginning of my life was all about radio. I was going to be this on-air personality. Long story short, ended up getting into healthcare management. And I don't want to go too much into that, but went into healthcare management, and I tell you, our lives just kind of take paths. After the birth of my twins, I had climbed the corporate ladder, and I just always had that passion about education. I come from a family of educators. And so, of course, when I kind of talked to my mom to say, I'm up here, I've really arrived, I felt like, or was really on my way in corporate America. But I just had that passion for teaching. So I really walked away from that, and I felt like God was really leading me in the path of education. And so I gave up corporate America and then got into becoming a teacher. And now, am an administrator in education. It is definitely, I love God so much. It amazes me how we have our own plans in life. And I feel like sometimes he's just up there like, no, that's really not, and I mean, that's who we are. We should have a plan, but it amazes me at how he still directs it in the midst of our choices, maybe some mistakes, to get us where we need to be.
And
Mm-hmm.
let me just say, he is
Mm-hmm.
such a great orchestrator.
Yeah.
I think about just being here with you right now, and our journey that we've had together. We never would have imagined, 20 years ago
No.
that we would be sitting here. We would have gone through that doctoral journey together, and that it would have brought us to where we are. And I'm very grateful.
I am too. I thank God a lot of times, and I think that's why it's important for us to have things like this. I think you're right. This program that you have is awesome, to share stories, to be transparent, to help others, that they're not just because you may have your mind made up here. Sometimes God pushes us or takes us in another direction. I'm just so thankful for him, for everything. I mean, you just can't thank him enough. But it just, some of the things that we also go through doesn't feel real good. And I think that's a little bit about what we'll be talking about today. But I do think in the end, when you really just meditate on it and talk to God, you have to, you have to use that to help others. And I think that's really what God, he helps you through things. Your test becomes your testimony, but you have to be able to testify and let other people know about your journey, so that perhaps they can make better choices, or they can think, hey, I'm not the only one that's dealing with this. That's the importance of talking about it, not being ashamed, not holding it in, not thinking about what everyone is going to say, because there may be some people like, she was in 2 marriages? You mean she was married twice? But there comes a point you have to be real with people. Yes, I am a Christian. I love the Lord, but I fall short a lot of times. And I still do. Thank God for his mercy and grace. Thank God for that. So yeah.
No, and it's interesting that you said that, because I often say transparency is key, and testimonies are transparent.
Yes.
They are. That's when we're being transparent. And when I went through my second divorce, I had a family member say to me, "Well, you really don't want anybody to say, well, what's wrong? She can't keep a husband, or she can't, And I'm going to tell you what I said. And now that I think about it, it may not have been the best response. However, here's where I was going with my response. I
Mm-hmm.
think that there are so many people in marriages, for the reason that you mentioned early on. It was my second marriage already. So I figured I got to try to stick it out, because I don't want the stigma. I don't want the scarlet letter. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
Yes.
gonna stay here, right? And even though I know, and you find yourself investing more time in something that is destined for an end. And
Exactly.
yeah, and
Exactly.
so I said to that person, but I would much rather be me and deal with the shame that I may have to deal with in ending this marriage than to be these other people that walk around here and pretend everything is hunky dory and they're not happy.
Exactly. Exactly. And and thank you for sharing that. And that's why I said, you just have to be transparent, because there may be people out there that are married a second time. And maybe they thought when they see my videos, they may think, well, she's just been married once. No, I've been married twice.
More than twice.
Right. Right.
So here's one of the common reasons that
Mhm.
people say they stay in toxic relationships, toxic marriages in particular, is I say for the kids. Um, with you, from what I've heard on your YouTube channel, it was polar opposite. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that first. Why?
Yes. Like I said, this was my second marriage. And I tell you, I went through quite a bit, and I am not going to get emotional like I did on my YouTube video, but I wanted it to work. We did the counseling. It was till death do us part. I fought to stay in it. Let's get help if you're having this issue. Maybe, as a wife, it is for better or for worse. You have to be there to support, your spouse through it. And the abuse, like I said, you can really hide it when children are small, but children grow and grow, and the years pass by. And I learned also as they were growing to learn how to kind of tiptoe. I knew how to just downplay it. I knew if I would speak back, and say something, it would escalate. So I learned how to just suppress. I learned how to, what not to say, or he's going to explode, and here we go. So I learned how to do that. But you get so tired of the mistreatment. And I started seeing my children just kind of look. They would just look. They were getting older. And I have twins, they're 15 now, but they would just look. They started noticing. I mean, they hear the comments. They would hear the verbal abuse. They would hear things, possibly being thrown if he, was in one of his, going on one of his rants or whatever. They heard that. I couldn't hide that anymore.
So, are the twins girls?
Boy girl twins. I have a son and I have a daughter, which is absolutely amazing. And that comes with its own, issues. How I've got a son, which is taking this in. And then I have a daughter, and they're both being exposed to this situation. And, as an educator, I have dealt over the years with children that have come out of households of abuse, whether they've been abused or they've been in situations where their parents were abusive. So I was the person that they may come to as an educator. And so I knew the effect that it had on children. And here it was happening in my own household. And so they began to get older, and all I kept thinking, because even though my ex-husband never talked about it, he was in an abusive situation growing up. We know there are generational curses. These things are cycles. I couldn't stomach my son, or the thought of my son getting older and being an abuser. But you know what? It happens. I couldn't think or even stomach my daughter growing up and me having to see her in an abusive relationship, being treated by some man, by her husband, the way her father was to me. It was almost as if I just started thinking about that. If we say we love our children and I would die for my children, they are my world, then I have to make sure that I'm giving them the best. And that was not what I would have been doing had I stayed in that environment. It wasn't healthy. This is not the way God wants marriage, to be exposed to that. There are certain things we call generational curses. They're there lingering. And as a Christian, I had to stop. Okay, maybe I'm going to have family members that are going to say, well, here she goes again. She just can't get it right. But at some point, it was for the children. It was for them. It was for me too. I'm going to be honest, because it really takes its toll on your health, on your mental, stability, everything. But I really did it for them because I wanted better for them when they grew up and got in a marriage. Because guess what? She could have said, well, Mom, if I ever sat up there and had to talk to her, maybe she had gotten in a beat down or whatever, with her husband. How was I going to say, you don't need to be a part of that. You need to leave. How could I tell my daughter that and look her in the eye when she could probably come back and say, well, you did, Mom. You stayed in it. Because isn't that what you're supposed to do when you love someone? You stay there. I didn't want that conversation because it's wrong, you know.
So kids don't need to know about the truth about, the bad parent or spouse. True or false?
Yeah.
That's the first part of my question. And then I want you to speak to um, co-parenting. Talk about the challenges, if there are any rewards to it, from your perspective. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think, with children in anything, being a parent, you take things in stages as they grow. You don't sit up there at 5 years old and give them all these responsibilities. Everything is taken in phases, in steps as they get older. And you just kind of know that as a parent. So it's almost the same mentality dealing with divorce. I'm very open with my children, but the conversations that we have now, being that they're 15 and they are finishing up their freshman year in high school. Yay! It's very different from the conversation that I had with them, in seventh, eighth grade when I was, going through this. It's just very different. And it's amazing that you asked that because I can really speak to it from having a son and having a daughter. And the difference is we know, especially with boys are reserved. They don't communicate as much. What he was seeing was different. Boys sometimes just don't openly express themselves and how they're feeling. Girls, girls are my little chatterboxes, a little bit more in tune with emotion. So I really had to handle that differently. How they saw things were very different. My daughter, saw things a lot more. My son might be in his room going, boys sometimes are in their own world. Girls, however, she was very much more in tune. She would, when I was going through the abuse, she was very much more in tune. So she would ask more questions. How am I? What does this mean? And so one of the things that I had to do, and you hear it kind of played out anytime you hear about people going through a divorce. This is a problem that it's between your mother and I, it's between your father and I, but he's still going to be a great dad, I'm still going to be a great mom, we're going to be the best parents. And you do have to go about it that way. When I spoke to them about that, they already really knew what was going on. I think, and honestly, Rhonda, I had left so many times throughout the marriage. I mean, I was an expert at packing up suitcases, and leaving just to come back 2 days later or 3 days later, and so when I finally got to the point of I'm getting ready, I can't do this anymore, I did have to have that conversation with my children because things were going to change drastically for them. And so I went about it as, look, Mom has to do what's best for me and for you all. And I don't want us to be in this environment. Your dad still loves you. He's still going to be a father. I still love you, but these are some things that Mom has to do for me and for us. And it's going to be okay. You're still going to have your friends. You're still going to have, it's going to be different because you don't want to sit up there and mislead them, but I let them know I'm going to try my best to make this the best for you all. And I think honestly, because children know and see, sometimes you don't have to really tell them that much. And for the first time when I finally left, I think they were both okay with it. At times in the past, my son, really wasn't. But at this point, and I will tell you, Rhonda, At that time, when I finally made that decision, because I prayed all throughout my marriage. I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. And Rhonda, when that moment when I spoke to God, and I mean, I felt like I had cried so much, I did not have any more tears to cry. I said, God, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be in this situation. Not for me. I don't want it for my kids. I'm tired. I don't know what to do. I cried out. You know, he's my daddy. He is my father. I cried out. I said, I don't have any more tears. And I had had this conversation with him throughout the years, but at that moment, Rhonda, I kid you not, it was as if this weight was lifted. It was, and people can sit up there and say, well, no, God wouldn't say that. He said, okay, Tanya. And oh, it was a release. I had to know that this divorce was not the fleshly Tanya. I had to know that God was okay with this. And when he gave me that okay, that final okay in my prayer closet, I knew he would take care of everything from that moment on. And Rhonda, he has. That's what I want people to know. When God releases you and you have that relationship, when you have that relationship with your daddy, you know, and he releases you, I knew he would order my steps and everything was going to be okay for me and for my children.
So when you were leaving and going back and leaving and going back, and then you finally said, "This is it." Do you believe that your children believed that you would be going and staying that final time? I'm going to say, take about 30, 45 seconds and talk about that, and we're going to go to break. Do you believe that they actually thought you were going to stay?
I think this time, well, I would, let me tell you this, which is kind of crazy. My sister, which I have a twin sister, and my mother, oh, they didn't, because I had done this so many times. I had become the professional packer. I knew how to pack up me and the kids 10 minutes tops. I mean, it was crazy. But I think, Rhonda, when I finally got that from God, because usually I would leave with emotions. He had just, screamed and hollered and he was throwing things and calling me everything. And so I would just jump, with emotions like packing it up. I didn't do that this time. I waited. There was no incident. There was nothing. There was nothing. I mean, yeah, incidents had happened, all throughout, every other week. But it was a rational, this is what we're going to do. I had planned it out. So it wasn't on emotions. And I think that's when they knew she's serious, because there wasn't an argument. We didn't hear anything. Wait a minute, what is she? I had already had that conversation. I had already had that conversation with God. And I was ready to say, this is what we're going to do. It wasn't a quick, we got to pack in 10 minutes and get out. It wasn't any of that. It was a planned process. So at that point, my kids were like, mom is serious.
Yeah. So I'm here with Dr. Tanya Coleman, and we're talking about divorce and life after divorce. We're on 94.7 FM, the Gospel Giant. We'll be right back in a moment. We are back on 94.7 FM, and I am still here with Dr. Tanya Coleman, and we are talking about divorce and life after divorce. And when we left, we were talking a little bit about co-parenting, and tell me, I don't know how it's been for you, but just speak a little bit to the co-parenting process, because I'm sure it's different for everybody depending on the people.
It is. It depends on, the reasoning for the divorce. And I will tell you, I had a very challenging divorce, which I'll even talk about on another blog. It was very long and drawn out. It is so, and if you go back and look at that video, it is so important to forgive, Rhonda. I can't, tell you, and you have to be real, because forgiveness is hard. I'm telling you, as much as you go through when you've been in an abusive relationship, and you think about all the things, all the years, and I do not want to get emotional, but you get emotional thinking about what this person did to you and your soul, the essence of who you were. It's tough. It comes up. I'm human. It still comes up. Thank God. Thank you, Jesus, for being able to forgive. He talks about it so much in the Bible. If God is able to, he forgave us, you know, if he forgave us, we have to forgive, and that's tough. But I will tell you, Rhonda, there's so much freedom when you forgive. There really is. This is not talk, people. This is not me just trying to quote what Christians say. There is freedom in forgiveness. You have to, and we wrestle not against flesh. And that's what I had to think about. I wasn't mad at him. I wasn't mad at this fleshly person. Now, I could be. But I thought about we're wrestling against these spiritual things, wickedness in high places. Don't give me to misquote, Rhonda. I know you probably know I'm over here misquoting scripture, but I know we wrestle not against flesh, and so it was spiritual. This is spiritual warfare that we're going against. That's what helped me to forgive. And then I started to think, I knew he dealt with things in his childhood that he never dealt with. Those are these generational curses. That's what helps me forgive. I have to look at this person and look beyond the fleshly person and all the things that he did, to me that were horrible. But I knew that's the enemy. That's the enemy trying to take me out through him. That's the enemy trying to take our children out through him. That's what helps you forgive. That's what helps you. And when you do that, you have to think also, the Bible says, honor thy father and mother. So as a mother, I have to make sure that our children are respecting not only me, but respecting him as their father. We have to raise our children up, in the Lord, Christian values. Who would I be to call myself a Christian and as a mother and I'm bad mouthing, their dad, which they have part of him anyway. They're wonderful kids. Honestly, as much as I can sit up there and think about all the pain, there are some good qualities in my ex-husband, or I would have never married him. I see a lot of the qualities that he has that are in my children that I absolutely love. That's what helps me co-parent. But co-parenting takes time also, because when you go through a divorce, you're going through emotions. Oh my goodness, I tell you, even going through the divorce trial, all the ugliness, everything that can come out, it can be very challenging. I think that the best thing that moves you to co-parenting, first of all, is forgiveness. And I think also with time. But there has to be forgiveness on both ends. And also as time passes, time really does heal. And so when that other person is able to heal and you're both able to heal, then the focus has to become, now let's really try to focus. The emotions are gone, but let's try to focus on being the best parents. That's how you move towards it. But I'm telling you, Rhonda, if you don't forgive and let that go, and say, let me do what's best for I have to let that go, because I'm going to be honest, and this might sound crazy, and like I said, I talk to God all the time. Everything that I went through really helped to build the person that I am today. I'm like, Lord, did I have to go through all of that abuse? I could have done it another way. I could have really, but I became less judgmental. So when people come to me and maybe they've been married 2 times, or maybe they come to me and they're talking about, this is what's going on in my marriage. I can say, hey, because I love marriage. I love the institution of marriage. I've always wanted to be a wife, and I'm not gonna be that person say, girl, you need to leave him. I would sit up there and pack up my, because I understand you have to put in sometimes, depending on that situation. So just throughout the things that I went through my marriage, you become less judgmental. You become more, it humbles you. So I wouldn't be the person that I am today had I not gone through some of those things. So I have to thank God for my mountains and my valleys, because it molds you and shapes you into the person that you are, today. And I know I went from co-parenting to talking about this. I don't know how I did that, but it just, took me there.
So I know you were hiding the abuse, probably not just from the children as much as you could, but probably family as well. how much have you hidden from the children about the divorce and all the things that come with the divorce? I mean, they know it's a divorce happening. Are you giving them details about it, or just
You
they
know,
understand that there's a divorce happening?
they understand that the divorce, which the divorce is final now, but they understand that. I will be honest with you. Sometimes that's all you really have to do. And I even said this on one of my vlogs. I'm thinking, when you grow up, you have memories of your childhood. People really think they're hiding things from their children. There are memories. There are things that kids just take in throughout their childhood. You don't have to really say a word. I didn't really have to badmouth. They knew why I was divorcing their dad. They were in the household. They heard it. They saw it. So you really don't have to say anything other than, I want the best for me and for you all. And it's wrong for any type of abuse. And I would say that, for any type of abuse to happen, that's not right. And I want the best, but I still want, your dad's going to still be the best dad. I'm going to be the best mom. And we go from there. You really don't even have to do details. You don't. And I know some people want to, your daddy did this, because you get real ticked off, like, everything when you're being called names, and that your children are hearing this. Or let's not talk about, as they're calling you names, they're throwing out lies because they know the children are hearing, but you're trying to do the right thing, but they're throwing lies out there, and you just quickly want to say, well, let me tell my side so the kids know that's not true. And it's not worth it. God will see it through. God will see it through. And you know what? Kids grow up and kids really see truth. You don't have to say a word. You don't.
How transparent have your children been about how they are coping with the process? Have they been open about how they feel or what things they've had to contend with, maybe from friends, if anything? Have they been very transparent about it?
They really have. It just hurt my heart, because we, when we got divorced, there were so many bad memories in the home. I did not want to stay there. And then I'm just going to be honest, my ex-husband probably makes almost 3 times the amount of money. I didn't want to I was like, can I really afford this home? The home is beautiful. I mean, it was, these are things that why people stay in there. We had the gorgeous home. We just did. And my kids had
Yes.
their friends in
Hmm.
this neighborhood. So they were initially embarrassed, because I chose to say, I need to step into something new. I can't stay here. Yes, the home is gorgeous, it's everything you would want your kids to have, and then some. And they really were they didn't want to be embarrassed, because they were like, because for a moment I had to actually stay with my mom until I got to the point of trying to find the home, the divorce being finalized. They were like, take us back. So I stayed at my mom's, and I would have to get up early in the morning and drop them off, because the bus would literally come to our house at the mailbox and pick the kids up every morning. And so they didn't want their friends to know their parents are going through this, divorce. Plus, we were we looked like the perfect family. That's the way that I had it. So there were a lot of people, neighbors, their friends, parents, that were, I'm sure, in shock, like, wait a minute, what? Because you just never know what's going on behind closed doors. But I kept that picture there. And so my kids were embarrassed. They didn't want to get on another bus. They didn't want their friends. I will tell you what helped also, is the fact that we now kind of live, in a world where divorce is a little bit more prevalent. And so I think after, especially my daughter, because of course girls tend to talk a little bit more than boys. My son, he didn't really talk about it to his friends. My daughter, she began to probably open up to a few of her friends, and found out that, oh, such and such, their parents are divorced, or, oh, such and such, they're remarried. And so I think that made her feel a little bit more comfortable seeing that other people, her friends, they had been through a divorce situation, or, oh, I thought that that was her dad, but that's actually the stepdad. So I think that really helped it through.
Yeah,
It's a
you're
lot more,
not on an
today.
island when they know they're not on an island
Yeah.
alone. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's what helped. And then my son just kind of went along because, like I said, sometimes boys, and that concerns you, you have to really do checkpoints a lot more on boys. Boys are usually less likely to talk about it. But I thank God now, my son is so, I mean, he's like, Mom, I'm really good, Mom. I mean, even now, I'll check up on him. He's like, Mom, I'm really, okay. But and then you really look at the actions of your kids. Let me say this, Rhonda, and for anyone out there, that was the importance of me getting released and getting that release from God and knowing that it was okay. I knew that he would see me through this. I can't tell you, I cannot, the goodness of Jesus, I cannot tell you how much he has blessed me throughout this process. And it is not about the blessings, but the home we have now. Jesus, only Jesus could have done that
Yeah.
with their friends.
Hmm.
They just finished. Here they are. This is supposedly, statistically, this is the worst age to go through a divorce. Smack dab 13, 14, 15, that's got to be far
Adolescence. Yes.
the worst age. Adolescence, it's the worst
As a
age.
matter of fact, the statistics show it's probably the last chance you have to mold
Yes,
a child.
yes, exactly. When I say the home that we're in now, and that's what the home. See, we were in a house. It was huge. When we were the house that I came from, that was a house to me. It was a gorgeous house. We have a home with love in a healthy environment. We are in a neighborhood where the majority of their friends are, so they're going to the same school. That just the fact that God has blessed me. Let me just say this as we're wrapping up the end of the school year. My daughter has a 4.0 average. She got straight A's. Our son has a 3.7 GPA.
Awesome.
They have had a wonderful school year. Fresh
Aw-
out of divorce, fresh out of a divorce, fresh out of the home that they were in. But do you see, when God has control and orders your steps, you don't have to worry. I had the fear, the financial fear, the fear for my kids, the fear for me. What am I going to do? Am I making? But when God released me, because he's seen me through so much throughout my life, my faith is there because he's seen me through. I know what he's done. So when he released me and says, I have you, you're okay, I knew my daddy would have me. I knew he would. And he has. And that's what I want to tell people is, I understand the fear. I understand you're thinking about what other people may be saying, but God, but God. And that's all you have to say. That's all you need in life. That's it.
My next question was going to be, have there been any long term effects for your children? But I know number one, it's kind of still fresh. But even in that, listening to you talk, I can tell that that is just contingent upon the support system. It's contingent upon even your relationship with God, and understanding that you have Him in
Yes.
your corner and that you can ask
Yes.
anything and He will hear you.
Exactly. It is having that. And when you have that relationship with God, God also, like I said, had to check me. Tanya, you're gonna have to forgive. Don't God knew everything. He was there for every tear I cried over the situation. He knew everything. See, my family didn't. My kids didn't, you know. But he did. He knew. But he still said, I need you to forgive him. Because I can't move you forward. until you do. So God also checks, and he's still continuing to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do so that he can do what he wants to do as well. So I think,
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
yeah, so I just think as far as like the long-term effects, I know the importance of that co-parenting piece. Their dad wasn't a good husband to me. He wasn't. Doesn't mean he's not a good father. Doesn't mean he loves them any less than I love them. And so that's important, because at the end of the day, I have to make sure that co-parenting piece is there. I have to make sure there's forgiveness in my heart. And my ex-husband is going to have to also do that. You know, you have to continue to pray. I think he's still in shock that I left him because I had left so many times, Rhonda. I mean, so that was tough for him. Like, is she really serious? Because I had come back so many times. So that's something that he has to kind of deal with. Okay, it's final, we're divorced, but I still pray that he has a wonderful life. He's the father of my children.
Mhm.
And so it is just so important for you to not have any bitterness and anger in your heart so that you can move forward with life. And it really, I'm going to be 50 this year. I mean, I'm just like, but God, I used to cry like, Lord, it just seems like so many of my good years have been taken away. I'm going to be 50. And
He'll restore. He'll
he
restore
will,
years.
he is a restorer. Yes, he is. Thank you. Yes, he is.
So I know that you talked about, how often you went back and forth, and then, the difference in how things looked when you finally said, I'm going and I'm staying. Do you
Mhm.
remember what your enough was? Do you even remember what that was?
That's such a good question. And I think the enough was, and like I said, it wasn't, when we go into a new year, when you have a birthday, I just think you start to reflect on life. And the goodness about God is so good, because I will tell you, Rhonda, and even when I was in the doctoral program, I was smack dab in the middle of all of this. You would not have known. I had no, the importance of having spousal support. I had none. I was doing my studies and doing things in the library at Tribeca, just at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, because he was already upset about me doing that, because that was selfish. So I couldn't really do it at home, because that I was taking away time from the kids. I need to be a mom. I need to be a wife and clean and cook and, do all of this. And so I was running. I didn't have any more. I was trying to hide. I was trying to work on my doctoral program. I had just gotten blessed, with a principal position, so I was God. And like I said, even though I was going through things in the household, God was still up to something in my life. He was still moving Tanya through life, which is just unbelievable. Just like I said, he's amazing. You can't. There's just not enough words, not enough time
Right.
to talk about the goodness of God.
That's right.
But I think I was getting older. I knew my kids, and like I said in one of my videos, how my kids would just come out, because he would just randomly kind of start saying things and shouting about something, and I would see my kids look. Rhonda, I just got tired. I started, and I'm honestly, ladies, I started looking in the mirror, and you know how you start seeing your age. I started looking at my health started failing. Um, and I just said, I can't be the best mom. I can't be the best godly woman. I can't do it when I have nothing else to give. I do deserve better than this. I do, and I don't want my kids to think this is okay. It was almost just like I said, I was just in my prayer closet, because I had so much going on, and I just was trying to draw strength on God, and it just kind of came to a point. I had so much going on, I couldn't hold it all together. And I said, Lord, I'm trying to hold it together. I can't. And that's when he just released me. Because it was just, you know how you're praying about something and something like that burden is just lifted. Like, okay. And that, so I think it was just a combination of everything that was going on. Like I said, it wasn't even that he was shouting that day like he usually does, or saying anything negative or any of that. It was just me reflecting over everything that I had and trying to juggle everything, thinking about my children and what they were exposed to. And I knew we deserved to be in a better situation. Yeah.
So when you were talking about what you were going through when you were on your doctoral journey, that reminded me, and I think if our entire cohort um, were willing to be transparent, all of us had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things going on, and it made me remember what Dr. Strike said to us the very first class we had with him, and he said, I promise you, he said, this class is about you. Remember, he would say that.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Mm-hmm.
said, and because I promise you, anything that can happen during this journey will happen. And as the kids today say, where's the lie? We're going to go to break and we will be right back with Dr. Tanya Coleman. We're talking about divorce and life after divorce. We will be right back on the Gospel Giant 94.7 FM. Welcome back to Doctor to Doctor in the chat room. I am with Dr. Tanya Coleman, and we are talking about divorce and life after. And I think this is just an awesome discussion. And I want to just say thank you for your willingness to be transparent and to tell your testimony. And I want at this time to probably just say, I think you should offer some tips to our listening audience. Maybe there is somebody out there right now, I'm sure there is, in a different type of situation maybe, but yet they're still in a situation that is not healthy. It may not be abuse. It could be anything else. It could be anything else going on. However, they want to get out. They just don't know how. People worry about shame. There's so many things people worry about. What tips would you offer to someone? Because I don't want anybody to think that we're here marketing and advertising divorce, because that's not what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, and the one thing that in having this platform that I've always tried to do is to keep all things mental health at the forefront. When you're in toxic situations, you cannot be healthy mentally. So that's what our focus is. It's not about, if somebody made you mad, you need to go file for divorce. This is not where we are. So just talk about some tips, some general tips that you might be able to offer.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you said that. It is, you know, you'll notice I just recently kicked off my YouTube channel a few weeks ago. And it was because, Rhonda, we're all in this quarantine situation. Sometimes things happen. I mean, there's a lot of reflecting, self-reflection going on right now. But they even talked about how even I think the searches online for divorce, toxic relationships has just skyrocketed. Think about all this time. So I can only imagine my heart. I was crying, Rhonda, a few weeks ago because I was sitting up there. I always thank God every day. I wake up in my bedroom and I open my blinds and I just look up at the sky and thank God for where I am today, for where He brought me. But I started thinking about all of the people that are in a situation right now that I was in this quarantine situation. And so that's why I think God pushed me to start giving my story, because there's so many people I know that are tuned in, to your radio station as well. Like, what do I do? Which is where I was, all those years. What do I do? I need someone to speak to me. Lord, I need someone to tell me it's going to be okay. My advice is, first of all, you're not crazy, because we do go through different emotions. I want to stay. I don't want to stay. I don't know what to do. I'm fearful. Even though we're Christians and even though we have faith in God, we are still human. And so sometimes I think the expectation, or we expect so much of ourselves. It's okay for you. I'm sorry. It's okay sometimes for you to have doubt. That, that, but that's when you have to dig deep. That's when you have to go to the word, and pull back up that word. When we go to church and, or your bishop or your pastor is giving you all this word, right? It's there. You take it in, and that's what you draw on for times like this. But I think my tip is you're not crazy, because sometimes I'm telling you, when you're in a narcissistic relationship, when you've been told you're nothing, when you've been told the sky is red and the sky is blue, but you've just gone through this type of life, you start to think, do I even trust my own judgment? Sometimes this is the time for you to sit down, because you're not crazy. You are human, but it's time for you to reflect. I feel like God has us in this situation to start reflecting on our lives, with ourselves, what's going on here, also reflecting on the relationship that we have with Him and what we deem as important. So my tip is, you really just have to sit down. First of all, know that you're human. You're not crazy. But you have to start kind of getting in that quiet time to write down, this is what I'm going through. Here's what God wants me to have. God wants us. He is our Father. So I always think about the way that I love my children doesn't come close to the love that God has for me. I can't even come close to the love that He has for me. And I think about how much I love my kids, but it doesn't come close to the love that God has for you and for me. Remember that. And so I think we have to draw on that. Do I want my kids to be abused? Would you want your kids to cry every day and be at the hands of somebody that's constantly telling them they're nothing? No. So if I don't want that for my children, God doesn't want that for us too. So we have to start looking at things. I think sometimes, we had moved and from a generation of religion to relationship. Thank God we moved from religion to relationship. That's important. I'm so, because I just think about over my life, at one point it was, you go to church, you get up, you put on your Sunday clothes. It was all about religion. We started moving into relationship. Thank goodness for relationship. Thank goodness I can go to Him as my Father and say, Daddy, this is how I'm feeling today. This is help me. I don't have to sit there and quote scriptures and thou art and thank you for the goodness. I can just go to Him. And that would be, when you get in situations like this, you have to be true to yourself. It is okay that you're not perfect. It is okay that you're not this, that you're like, it's okay sometimes to even be mad. Be okay with it. I mean, I have gone to God to say, I'm really upset right now. I'm mad. I don't understand why you have me here. Be okay with the emotions that you're going through. But then you have to sit down in this quiet time, use this quiet time, and you start writing down things. I always say, anytime you look at trying to get a divorce, I couldn't just leave on emotions. Remember I talked about how often I would just pack our bags in less than 10 minutes because I had it down, and leave. You can't do it under emotions. You have to be clear, because it's a major life-changing decision, not only for you, but for your children and for other family members involved that you've become close to over the years. So my tip would be, you have to sit down and you have to think about, what are the reasons. Go into that prayer closet, because you have got to have God there. But I think my tip would be, we still are human. And we're not perfect. And no, you're not crazy. And sometimes you have to get out of what everyone else is going to think. You got to clear your mind from that. And I get it. You don't think I thought, this was my second marriage. You don't think I thought about what people would say about me? I got to go to the family reunion and tell them I'm divorced again. She got 3 kids. She still can't get it right. It's just,
Especially the family reunion. Woo!
every year, Rhonda, for me.
Family, man, family be hard on you for real.
And they mean well. And in the Black family, Christians, we that foundation. Here comes Tanya divorced again. Can she get it right?
Here comes Tanya, divorced again.
Mhm.
This is the part they leave out. Here comes happy Tanya. Telling you, that's the part they leave out. And in
Oh
all
goodness.
honesty, we could just take that and just run with it, because sometimes, that's the whole idea. People really sometimes don't want to see you happy, and when you are finally happy, when you are finally free,
Mm,
they find something else to grab a hold to. Not the fact that you're happy and you're free, but a stigma of divorce. You just really almost have to get to the. My grandmother used to say this to me, and it didn't make sense until I was much older. She said, sometimes it's not about selfishness, it's about self preservation.
mm,
When I started to learn how to preserve self, be honest with you, I probably just really learned the strategies that go along with preserving me and taking care of me during that doctoral journey. I was so focused on I'm going to get it and all the other things that were going on around me, because truth be told, more so than being an expert in an area from getting the doctorate, I think I learned how to be a better person more than anything. Now, yeah, I had to come out and do physical stuff, like you got to lose weight because you eating chips and cookies and stuff all night long, and you know what I mean. You know how it was.
yeah.
But from the mental perspective, I had to take care of my mind if I was going to get that doctorate. I had to take care of my mind. So all that other stuff that was distracting my mind, and people don't understand it. The people that you've allowed to distract your mind for so long, when you finally make up your mind that no, no more, it's really difficult. Like you said, for your ex-husband, he's having a difficult time because you left and you stayed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we only have a few minutes left, but I want you to talk about life after. And I want you to do that first. And then I'm going to come back with one final question that I think is a really simple but kind of profound question because of the things that are tied with the divorce. So, talk about life after for you.
You know what? Life after is more than I ever expected. And I think that is the importance of making sure that God has released you and is ordering your steps. When you have that, it's as if things are just paid. It is amazing. And I will say that when my divorce process was challenging, it took me time and money to get my divorce. My credit took a hit. When I tell you, because I'm just going to be real. I ended up leasing a home in a neighborhood where my children could go to the same school. I didn't want just to they were already going through this major divorce. I wanted a nice home. It couldn't be as nice as the one we had, but it really is. Thank you, Lord, because it's a home. Because it's a home. But I just had, they were used to certain things. I mean, and I don't mean to come across as being materialistic, because I could have lived in a box and I would have been happy. But I thought about my children, what they were used to, and I just wanted them to have the same. So, long story short, I ended up leasing a home in a neighborhood where a lot of their friends, are here. They're still zoned to the same school system. And my credit was so bad, I depended on my mom to help me get into this home. But God. because I'm a person, I care about my credit, paying things. I was like, this is what I've got to do. And so I really, because I'm a budgeter, I'm a planner, so I'm like, okay, Lord, this is what I'm going to do. I took a hit. I spent thousands of dollars, to finalize my divorce. That's a whole nother story, because it took 2 years for me to get this finalized. But throughout this process, and I'm going to try to make this short, let me tell you that this is a major leasing company that I was leasing this home from. My goal was, I did a lease for 2 years. I'm going to get my credit together, and then we're going to buy a home. Okay? All of a sudden, the end of December comes. I get this email from the company, we're pulling out. Would you like to have the opportunity to buy the home? Well, I'm like, okay, yes. Yeah, this is it. Why is this coming through? But can I afford, this home? Long story short, my credit score jumped up 130 points. So I have really, really good credit right now. I talked them down $10,000 on the home. And God got me in this home, me, the only person on the deed, didn't have to get mama. Yeah, God blessed me, and I'm paying less a month than what I was paying when I was leasing it. So I'm saying that when things are ordered by God and you work and do your part, God will do his part too. So life after, I tell you what, when I got in the home run, I would just run through the house. I was like a little kid. Because when you've been in an abusive, controlled environment, I didn't realize how controlled I was until I got in my own home and was able to actually make decisions for myself. I never could really cook, because he would say, well, they just need to go out. I'll just get some takeout. I would sometimes spend time cooking dinner, and he would get up there and order takeout, their favorite takeout to come in. So I had stepped back. I lost so much of myself during that marriage, because when you're in a controlled or abusive relationship, it is all about the abuser. So I was losing Tanya. Life after is finding yourself again. I was, look, not that y'all really want to know, but I ran around this house. My kids were with their father on this weekend. I ran around this house butt naked, just jumping up and down. I say that to say that I felt, everybody's like, we don't really need that visual, but I just felt so free. I was doing snowflakes, just on the floor and because I was free, So life after is about, you're finding yourself. You are you again. That's what life, that you don't even realize the bondage that you were under until the life after is freedom. It is freedom. Now we can talk about some other things as well, but let me just say, the freedom when you've been in an abusive relationship and everything's been managed. Just like I had to have the house really, really clean. I've always been a clean person, but it had to be, spotless. I mean, and it got to the point where we just had to get somebody to come in and clean because my cleaning wasn't good enough. But that's a whole nother thing. I'm not going down that road. Yeah. But just the fact that, okay, there's just one little dish in the sink, it's not the end of the world. I really started to see how controlled and how abused, that I was really in bondage when I came and I started like doing things like wiping up, cleaning up, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, you can relax a little. So what if there's a cup in the sink? I mean, to some people, they may be like, oh my gosh, bless her heart. That is what so many people are living with right now. And people don't know that they may think, well, just, knock down, drag out. If I don't see, bruises on the person, you cannot imagine the control and being in that type of environment. And then when you're out. So life after for me has been finding Tanya. getting back to things that Tanya enjoyed, things that Tanya liked. And let me tell you something, ladies, and even men, don't let age fool you. I'm also learning, oh my goodness, that there you can also open yourself up and find love. There are some great people still out there in their late 40s and 50s that, guess what, they're divorced too, and you can find love, and you start to see, that, gosh, there is love out there. There are loving people out there you can trust again. So it is about finding your hobbies, things that you like. That's what life after is about. It's about living.
So, and I'm glad you said men too, because I said a little while ago in the broadcast that I don't want people to think we're marketing divorce and saying, hey, if you're mad, well, you just go get a divorce. And I also don't want people to think that we're badgering men, because men go through things in divorce too. This is about divorce in general. It's not, gender unique.
And I'm glad that, yes, go
Mhm.
ahead.
My last question, because we're really about out of time. My last question to you is, I think it's very odd. We talked about the shame very early on in this discussion. Oddly, the shame is usually attached to getting out of a marriage, rather than there being any shame attached to staying in an unhappy, toxic, unhealthy situation. People may whisper about it now and again. Oh, he beats her, or she does this to him. She uses him, or whatever. But for the most part, the real shame is attached to getting out and not staying in. Why do you think that is?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I even said I wanted to kind of study this. And, I talked a little bit about how we went from religion to relationship.
Yeah.
We think about even generations before us. I'm sure there are some women that went through that and then some, but stayed. Um, and then even in the African American community, there are certain cultural things and things we just do because that's the way it is, that's the way it was. I think also as a society, we like to kind of pick and choose and rate sins. Well, this sin is on this scale, and this sin is worse than this. See, we go by man's ratings. A sin is a sin is a sin. And so because the church has made divorce, and I don't know how God, I would like to do some studying, or even turn to some pastors, or some bishops out there that can explain, how do we categorize? Because to me, being judgmental, there's so many sins out there that we forget about, but we put divorce or homosexuality. I mean, there are certain things we put up here. And so I think because we have a way of rating things, then the shame comes on. Yeah, well, divorce, that's up there. This is major, but this person can go over here and be judgmental and talk about people and gossip. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute now. People make mistakes. People sin.
That's a
I made a mistake. Yeah, and I think that's why I want to talk even about how I got in my first marriage. Marriage is serious. And we have to start talking to our sons and daughters about that. And I think, I hope that we're getting to the point where I think even the younger people, they're like, this divorce rate is so high. I mean, they're even afraid to get married sometimes. Well, I'm glad they're kind of thinking about it, because you should take your time. And if you don't have a relationship with God and the other person doesn't have a relationship with God, it's doomed to fail right then and there. That's why my first marriage, I didn't even know myself, didn't have really a relationship with God, didn't ask God about it, and neither did he. So we made a mistake.
Mhm.
But simply because then we got divorced, then do you want to put that and put the shame because of a mistake that we make mistakes every day. We sin every day. But that's where the shame comes in, because I think we as a people have put this up here, and that's where that divorce, you stay in that. God, the institution of marriage, that's way up here.
Mhm.
And so I think we do have to do a better job on the front end before people get married. We got to be real. We need transparency. We need for people to say, this is what you're going to come against. Don't think just because you have a relationship with God that temptation is not going to come your way, because Satan cannot stand the institution of marriage. He hates it because that is important, because it's a family unit and it's generation, and you want blessed generations, and it's better to have husband and wife and kids so that you can continue to have that.
Mhm.
We get it. That's why we've got to have those important conversations up front, and we can't act holier than thou and forget about all the things they really need to understand when they say I do. But if they do say I do, and if things were not the way they needed to be, and things start happening in that marriage, we have to be honest also and understand that God doesn't want us to stay in certain situations either. So I think there just needs to be transparency in the church. That's the only way that this shame can just go. We don't want to take marriage lightly. I don't want to sit there and say, oh yeah, go get a divorce and God's going to forgive you and your life is going to be wonderful. Trust me, there is a price that comes with it.
Mhm.
There is. I don't want anybody to think just because Tanya is happy now that I'm saying, hey, you get a divorce, you're going to be living your best life. That's not it.
Mhm.
But I do think we need to have honest conversations in the beginning, and I think we just need to have it also and remove that shame, because God does want us to live a good life here as well. He does.
I'm so glad that you were willing to have this conversation with me. And I do think it's a very crucial conversation to have. And as we've said all along, this transparency piece is going to be key, not just about divorce, but so many other things in our community that are so taboo and people don't want to just face it head on. But it's real. And I thank you so much. I want you to come back. I'm proud of you.
Oh,
I love you. And we are going to talk again very, very soon and catch up, because we haven't been able to do this. And I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come on today. We hope that you have heard something that has been beneficial to you and helpful to you. And we hope that you will join us again. I do, on next Saturday at 2 p.m. at the same time on the Gospel Giant 94.7 FM. We will see you then.